What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Knives of the Round Table. My name is Marco, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Ace Jutland. And the Ace Jutland is the latest version of the Ace line of GiantMouse knives. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar with GiantMouse, GiantMouse has, I think they're all production knives, but they have like two different levels of knives. They have their GM line and they have their Ace line. The GM line is kind of their higher end. It's a limited production. You know, once they produce a model, I think it never comes back. So you kind of have to get on it. I've never been able to have one of the GM knives. They're expensive. They're hard to get, or a lot more expensive than these, than the Ace line. But a lot of the models, you know, that they do as a GM model, it starts as a GM model, and then they translate over to a more affordable model in their Ace line. So this one, I want to say it's based on the GM8, but don't quote me on it. I'll correct myself but it's based on one of the GM models, and so they came up with the Ace Jutland, and this is the latest version of their Ace line. So let me give you a tour of the knife, if I can get my fingerprints off it. You can see I've used it. So let me give you a tour of the knife. What you have here is kind of a Bowie style blade. It looks much larger than it actually is in real life. It's 3 3/8, so it's sub 3.5 inch blade, which is something that I thoroughly enjoy. But it is, you know, it is a full-size knife. I mean, I wear large gloves, and you can see, you know, I'm not even up here, and I still have some space left over. It's an LMAX blade. It's an LMAX blade. A lot of the knives from GiantMouse are LMAX, and I like LMAX quite a bit as a steel. I think it's very close, or very well balanced steel. It's usually used by European knife makers, not exclusively, of course, but you can see a lot of knives that come from Europe. A lot of them have LMAX. You know, you can see in GiantMouse, you can see it in a lot of the Vox, the MKMs, the line steel. You see them in TRC. So LMAX steel, very good. What you have here is it's a liner lock, and this one's in green micarta. I think they also made it in bright orange G10. You have a wire pocket clip that can be reversed. You have a titanium back spacer. It is a liner lock, okay? And I think you got a little bit of a lanyard hole back here. And you have two deployment methods. You can deploy middle finger flick, and you have a flipper tab, and that's always really nice. So let me give you some size comparisons here. So here it is against the Para 2. So a little bit longer than the Para 2. Let me see. Or maybe it's the same length. So it's probably the same length as the Para 2. And then here is the Para 3. So very much in length, it's pretty much in the neighborhood of the Para 2. But I'll show you here in carry profile. This carries really, really nicely in the pocket. You see in carry profile, this is much slimmer. It is much sleeker. It's not a small knife. It's a decent sized knife, but it's not fat. I'll show you here in thickness. It's pretty much in the same neighborhood as the thickness as the Para 2. But obviously in this dimension, this one carries a lot better. So while it's closed, I'll show you how it compares. That's the full-size bug out, and this is the mini bug out. So obviously larger, but for the size of the blade, I think it carries probably more like the bug out than it does as the Para 2. So here's the full-size bucket and the mini bug out. So I think lengthwise, you're really talking more in the neighborhood of the Para 2. One comparison that I wanted to bring up is the other GiantMouse Ace knife that I have is the Ace Grand. So this is another version of another GM line that they did into Ace, into the Ace line. They brought into the Ace line, and I bring it up because the Ace Grand is one of the top 10 knives in my collection, and so a lot of the things that I've said about the Ace Grand translate into the Ace Jutland. But I'll talk. There's some real advantages to the Ace Jutland. I still overall like more the Ace Grand, primarily aesthetics, but there's some real positives here for the Ace Jutland. So let's start with ergonomics, and the ergonomics they're pretty darn good. They're pretty darn good. The scales are contoured in this direction, and even though it's a smaller handle, it's a smaller scale than what you get from the Ace Grand. The Ace Grand is a little bit taller in most dimensions this way, but this one feels very, very nicely in the hand. You've got this jimping that it doesn't hurt at all. It's just very, very effective. Hammer grip, saber grip. It feels very nicely in the hand. I like the feeling of micarta. This is, I'm not sure who is intended for, but I'm guessing the shape of the blade with the buoy style, very much in the outdoor hunter Skinner type of knife. And the micarta gives you a fairly solid grip. It gives you this, this textured surface that you can hold on to very good. You do feel the pocket clip, but the wire pocket clips, they have the advantage that since everything's rounded, nothing really pokes. You can feel it's there, especially in a hammer grip. Not so much in a saber grip. Your grip adjusts in the hammer in the saber grip, so that the pocket clip kind of gets into the hollow. I feel it more when I'm in a hammer grip like this. So I would say that it's good, decent ergonomics. I wouldn't say it melts in your hand, but you can certainly put a lot of work with this knife without it hurting your hand. The action, I like the action quite a bit. So you have two deployment methods. You have middle finger flick, and it is really, really nice to do. And you've got a flipper, which is kind of my preferred deployment method. Now, it's a lighter blade. Let me see if I can give you a thickness comparison here. Yeah. So you got a blade that is in the same neighborhood of thickness as the Para 2. So hopefully that's coming across here. So you got the same kind of thickness, but it's a much shorter blade in this direction, as you can see. So it's not a heavy blade, so it doesn't really drop closed, but you can shake it closed fairly easily. It doesn't take a whole heck of a lot of shaking to just get it to drop. It's fairly simple, but I've always said that action has two components, right? The deployment action and the closing action. And for me, the deployment is more important than the closing action. And, because, for example, take something like the Grimsmo Norseman that has, just drop incredible shutting action, right? The closing action. But I would say that it has, average action on deployment. And that's why it never makes it into my top 10 action knives. This one, the deployment is really, really nice. I like the fact that you have two deployment methods. It feels really, really snappy. And one thing that it does, oh, thank you God for this. Let me show you. So, the biggest drawback of the Ace Grand is that basically they made these two scales, the show scale and the clip side, essentially the same height, with the liner protruding just a tad bit. So what I had to do was I actually had to take my Dremel, and I hopefully you can see here. Let me see if I can bring you closer. You see that right there, that you see the liner on this side of the scale right here? Well, I took my Dremel and I sanded down a little divot, because you could not, by the life of you, access the lock bar. Now on this one, if you see it in this profile right here, if you see it here, you can see that the liner extends much better than it does on the Ace Grand. So that makes this for a fidget, a really fidget friendly knife. You can access it. You don't feel like you have to jam your thumb into here to disengage. It just feels really nicely to do. So I would say that the deployment action is excellent. It's really good. It's snappy. It feels really nicely. Closing, it's okay. You have to kind of give it a couple shakes to get it close. It's not a drop shot, but I think that the action is certainly one of the strengths of the knife. I would certainly, I think that if you're a Spyderco fan and you like to middle finger flick, I think you will very much enjoy this one. Now, what else? Fit and finish. So fit. Oh, actually, let me go with cutting. And cutting, I've done a fair amount of cutting with this one, and it's very much. It feels very close to the Ace Grand. And if I'm honest, even though this one's a taller blade and they have the same blade thickness, do they have the same blade thickness? No, probably not. No. So the Ace Grand, so that's why they feel the same. So they don't have the same blade thickness, but this one is a flat grind. The Ace Grand has a flat grind that goes taller, and this one is a thinner blade stock, but it's kind of a shorter blade. So as it goes through material, it feels very much the same way. Now this one pierces a lot better. So like I said, I think this is I would say that this is a better EDC knife, and this is better for stuff, you know, for, like I said, for a hunter, for Skinner, you know, when you have to pierce things. This is a better knife for that kind of thing. I've always said that for most of my tasks, almost any knife will do. Cutting through cardboard, it does pretty well. I do think that this is for somebody that, you know, that's going to be doing some hunting. If you're a hunter, I think this works very well for you. But not only that, I think that if you want to carry this as an EDC, it's thin enough in this direction. It carries very well. I do think that the buoy style tip here, it looks a little bit more aggressive. It's certainly more pointy. So depending on what you do and where you work, that may or may not be a thing. But I think that you can put some serious work behind this one. I think it's built well, and I think that the ergonomics are decent. I certainly think that, you know, if you do a lot of cutting, I think this knife will do. I think it'll work well for you. Now, fit and finish, I think, is excellent. So these are made in Maniago, Italy, and I believe that the people who make them are the same consortium of MKM, Maniago knife makers, and they're the ones who do a lot of knives for Vox. For Fox knives, I'm sorry, it just Vox designs a lot of Fox knives. For Fox knives, they have their own brand, the MKM. You've seen the review of the Micro in my channel. I think they do some of the Lion Steel knives, and they do I think they're the OEM for the GiantMouse brand, and I think they do a very good job. I think, you know, the micarta is very nice. The grind that you have here, you see, I do like my grind lines to be a little bit more prominent, but this is pretty nice. I think the bevels are consistent on both sides. You got a crowned, they've crowned the top of the blade here. You've got contoured scales. They've done an ambidextrous pocket clip. Now, I kind of have a love-hate relationship with wire clips. I think they're the Toyota Camry of the knife world. I think, you know, they're very reliable. They're very well. They're just too plain, so I think I need to change both of these wire clips. I think that the spider cord replacement clips from like Lynch or one of those will do, so I'm going to try and do that. But I think overall you have an LMAX blade, you have very decent action. I think it's decent value here. It's nothing, you know, it's not the best in the value in the world, but I think for what you're getting an LMAX blade. The action is very good. Again, it's weird because it's a sub 3.5 inch blade, right? But it looks and feels much bigger than that. It feels like it punches above its weight class. It looks like a larger knife, but it's not really. You know, so I think I would highly recommend the knife if you're on the fence and you like this style. I still think that if you do this scale sanding, I think that the Ace Grand is a better knife overall. And there's a version of the Ace Grand that is very similar to this. In other words, micarta, that kind of stuff. You don't get the flipper tab in the Ace Grand, which I think is a plus for the Jutland. But if you're looking for something that's a little bit slimmer, that it's a little bit sleeker, or you just like the bowie style blade, then absolutely go for the Jutland. Now, airing of grievances, not a lot. I mean, do I wish that it was a little bit more drop shotty? Maybe. But overall, for the price and for what you're getting here, I've enjoyed carrying this knife quite a bit. I think it'll stick around in my collection. It's not one of those that as soon as I review it and I carry it for a couple of weeks and I'm like, I'm probably not gonna keep it. I think this I'll keep. I think I would enjoy carrying this moving forward, especially because I think it's a decent size. I usually say that 3¼ inches, 3 3/8 will do. Is the perfect blade size for me. But it's a fidget monster, and I enjoy flicking my knives. So there's not a lot of negatives here. I think they did an excellent job. I don't think this is a Voxness designs. I think that the Vox designs are always marked. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm not sure. I don't think this is a Vox design, because Jesper Voxness usually doesn't do bowie style blades. I think his designs. I think this one, the Ace Grand, is a Voxness design. But anyways, guys, I think I've rambled on quite a bit, but I think this is a good knife. I think you can find it right now in a lot of retailers. You know, depends on which one you like. There's this one and there's the bright orange one. And if you manage to find yourself the GM version of that at a reasonable price, I would certainly take a look at that one. Guys, hopefully you've enjoyed it. If you did, then like and subscribe only if you think that I earned it. And until I see you at the next one, take care.